Black waitress defends Korean Mafia boss in court. After his lawyer abandoned him, the judge was shocked, the mob was furious, and he fell in love. The courtroom fell into chaos the moment Marcus Goldstein stood up, gathered his briefcase, and announced to the judge, "Your Honor, I'm withdrawing from this case, effective immediately." Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. The prosecutor smiled like a shark scenting blood. And at the defense table, Kang Tae-hyun, head of the most powerful Korean organized crime family in Los Angeles, sat perfectly still, his expression carved from stone, watching his seven-figure lawyer walk out on him hours before closing arguments in a RICO case that could put him away for life. Nobody noticed the young black woman in the back of the courtroom, sitting in the public gallery with a notepad full of observations and a heart that was breaking for reasons she didn't fully understand. Naomi Rivers had been attending this trial for 3 weeks, sitting through every session during her breaks from the diner, where she worked double shifts to keep her head above water. She told herself it was research. She'd been a law student once, before her mother's medical bills had forced her to drop out 6 credits shy of graduation. Told herself she was just keeping her legal mind sharp by watching real courtroom drama unfold. But the truth was more complicated. The truth was that Kang Tae-hyun fascinated her. The way he sat through hours of testimony with perfect composure. The way he treated even hostile witnesses with formal respect. The way his eyes occasionally flickered to the public gallery and landed on her, just for a moment, with an expression she couldn't read but felt in her chest like a struck match. Now, as Judge Patricia Morrison demanded an explanation, and Goldstein cited irreconcilable differences with the client, Naomi's legal instincts screamed that something was wrong. You didn't abandon a client mid-trial unless something catastrophic had happened. And the timing, right before closing arguments, when the defense was actually gaining ground, was devastating. "Your Honor," the prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Rachel Chen, said with barely contained glee, "the people request that we proceed as scheduled. The defendant has had months to prepare. His attorney's withdrawal is not our concern." "Mr. Kang," Judge Morrison addressed him directly, her expression stern, "do you have other counsel ready to step in?" Tae-hyun stood, buttoning his charcoal suit jacket with precise movements. His English was accented but clear. "No, Your Honor. Mr. Goldstein assured me this morning that everything was prepared. I was not given warning of his withdrawal." "Then we have a problem. This is a complex RICO case with..." The judge consulted her notes. 17 charges, 43 witnesses, and enough evidence to fill a truck. "I cannot allow you to represent yourself. You'll be eaten alive." "I understand, Your Honor. I request a continuance to secure new representation." "Absolutely not," Chen interjected. "The defendant has exhausted every delay tactic. His lawyer's abandonment is strategic, designed to..." "I'll do it." Naomi's voice cut through the courtroom before her brain caught up with her mouth. Every eye turned toward her as she stood, her server's uniform from Rosie's Diner still on under her jacket, because she'd come straight from the lunch shift. "I'll represent Mr. Kang." The courtroom erupted, journalists talking over each other, the judge's gavel slamming, Chen laughing, actually laughing at the presumption. Tae-hyun's dark eyes found Naomi's across the crowded room, and something passed between them. Confusion, recognition, a question without words. "Who are you?" "Young lady," Judge Morrison's voice cut through the noise. "Approach the bench, now." Naomi's legs felt like water as she walked down the aisle, past reporters and curious onlookers, to stand before the judge. Up close, she could see Tae-hyun properly. Sharp features, intelligent eyes, and a tension in his jaw that suggested he was barely holding himself together. "Name?" the judge demanded. "Naomi Rivers, Your Honor." "Are you a member of the California Bar, Ms. Rivers?" This was it, the moment where her impulse would crash into reality. "No, Your Honor, but I have 6 years of legal education from UCLA law, including advanced courses in criminal procedure, constitutional law, and RICO statutes. I was 6 credits from graduation when I had to withdraw for financial reasons." "So you're not a lawyer?" "Not technically, but I've studied this case for 3 weeks. I know every witness, every piece of evidence, every argument Mr. Goldstein was planning to make. And with all respect, Your Honor, Mr. Kang deserves representation. Throwing him to the wolves because his lawyer was a coward isn't justice." Judge Morrison studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Chen, you have thoughts on this?" "Your Honor, this is absurd." She's not even a paralegal. She's a... Chen glanced at Naomi's uniform with barely concealed contempt. A waitress playing lawyer. Mr. Kang is accused of running a criminal enterprise that's laundered over $50 million, trafficked illegal weapons, and orchestrated at least 6 murders. This isn't traffic court. I'm aware of the charges, counselor. The judge turned back to Naomi. Ms. Rivers, do you understand what you're volunteering for? This case is a minefield. One mistake could cost Mr. Kang decades in prison. I understand, Your Honor, but one mistake has already been made by Mr. Goldstein, who abandoned his client at the worst possible moment. Someone has to stand in that gap. It might as well be someone who actually cares about justice rather than just billing hours. For the first time, a ghost of a smile touched the judge's lips. Mr. Kang, you have a say in this. This woman is offering to represent you pro bono, despite having no license and apparently no sense of self-preservation. Do you accept her as counsel? Tae-hyun looked at Naomi, really looked at her, and she felt stripped bare under that gaze. Then he bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that seemed out of place in an American courtroom, but somehow fit him perfectly. Yes, Your Honor, I accept Ms. Rivers as my attorney. I trust her more than I trusted the man who just abandoned me. You're both insane, Judge Morrison shook her head. Ms. Rivers, under California law, I can grant you temporary certification to practice law in this courtroom under extraordinary circumstances. But understand this, you screw up, you'll face sanctions. Possibly even criminal charges if you're found to be practicing law without a license outside these proceedings. I understand, Your Honor. Then God help you both. We're in recess until tomorrow morning. Ms. Rivers, you have 18 hours to prepare closing arguments. I suggest you use them wisely. The gavel came down. Court adjourned. Naomi stood frozen as the courtroom emptied, reality crashing down on her. What had she just done? She wasn't a lawyer. She was barely keeping her head above water financially, working 60-hour weeks at the diner to pay rent and send money to her younger sister in Oakland, who was trying to finish college. The degree Naomi had sacrificed her own education to make possible. Ms. Rivers. Tae-hyun's voice was quiet, controlled, with an undertone of something she couldn't identify. He'd moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, something that reminded her of rain and cedar. We should talk, privately. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They were led by a bailiff to a conference room, sterile, fluorescent lit, with a table bolted to the floor and chairs that had seen better days. The moment the door closed, Tae-hyun turned to face her. Why? He asked simply. Why what? Why did you volunteer to destroy your life for a stranger, for someone accused of terrible crimes? You don't know me. You owe me nothing. His eyes searched her face. So why? Naomi sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Because I know what it's like to have the system abandon you, to be thrown away when you're no longer useful. She met his gaze. I watched you in this courtroom for 3 weeks. I watched how you carried yourself with dignity, even when witnesses lied about you. How you never lost your temper, never showed disrespect, even when everyone in that room had already decided you were guilty. And you think I'm innocent? I think you deserve a defense. That's what the law promises. Everyone gets their day in court. Everyone gets representation. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But that's bullshit if your lawyer can just walk away when things get hard. Her voice grew fierce. Goldstein didn't leave because of irreconcilable differences. Someone got to him. Someone paid him off or threatened him. And you don't deserve to pay the price for that. Tae-hyun studied her for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. He spoke rapid Korean to someone, then hung up and said, My people are investigating Goldstein's withdrawal. We should have answers within hours. He sat across from her. But right now, we need to focus on your closing argument. You said you've been following the case? Every day for 3 weeks. Naomi pulled out her notepad, pages and pages of observations, questions, inconsistencies she'd noticed. Mr. Kang, Tae-hyun, if you're going to risk everything to defend me, we should use first names. Tae-hyun, she corrected, the name foreign on her tongue. The prosecution's case has 3 major weaknesses. First, their star witness, Park Min-ho, has changed his testimony 4 times. Second, the financial records they claim show money laundering have gaps that their forensic accountant couldn't explain. Third, Every witness who claims you ordered violence has a criminal record longer than my arm and plea deals that depend on testifying against you. You noticed all that? Surprise colored his voice. I might not have a degree, but I have a brain. And I've spent the last 3 years reading case law instead of sleeping because I couldn't let go of the idea that I was meant to be a lawyer. Naomi flipped through her notes. Goldstein was building toward reasonable doubt, showing the jury that the prosecution's evidence is circumstantial and their witnesses are unreliable. But he was doing it badly. Too aggressive, too technical. The jury was losing interest. And you would do it differently. I would tell them a story, not about you being innocent, we both know that's not necessarily true, but about the prosecution failing to meet their burden of proof, about reasonable doubt, about the danger of convicting someone based on the word of career criminals cutting deals to save themselves. She met his eyes. I would make them see you as a person, not a monster, and I would make them doubt everything they think they know. Something shifted in Tae-hyun's expression. You understand courtroom psychology. I understand people, and I understand that juries don't convict based on evidence alone. They convict based on the story that makes the most sense to them. Right now, the prosecution has told a simple story. You're a gang leader who's gotten away with crimes for years, and it's finally time for justice. We need a better story. What story would you tell? Naomi leaned forward. The truth. That you're a businessman operating in a gray area, yes. That you've done things that skirt the law, absolutely. But that the prosecution is trying to turn you into a scapegoat for every unsolved crime in Koreatown because it's easier than doing real police work. That their witnesses are professional liars who've been promised reduced sentences for saying what the prosecution wants to hear. That the financial records are ambiguous at best and fabricated at worst. And if the jury doesn't believe that story, then we lose. But at least we'll have fought for you. At least you won't go down because your lawyer sold you out. She straightened her shoulders. Now we have 18 hours. Let's get to work. They worked through the night in Tae-hyun's lawyer's abandoned office. Goldstein had taken his personal items but left case files behind in his rush to escape. Naomi spread documents across every surface, building a narrative from the chaos while Tae-hyun filled in details only he knew. Tell me about Park Min-ho, Naomi said around midnight, nursing her third cup of coffee. The prosecution's star witness. What's his real story? Tae-hyun's expression darkened. Park was my father's lieutenant. When my father died 5 years ago and I took over, Park expected to be promoted to second in command. I chose someone else, someone more trustworthy. Park never forgave me. So this is revenge? Partially. But Park is also desperate. He was caught running a side operation, extorting Korean business owners without my authorization. The FBI offered him a deal. Testify against me, and his charges disappear. Refuse, and he goes to prison for 20 years. Tae-hyun's jaw tightened. They gave him no choice. Destroy me or destroy himself. That's the story we need to tell. Not that Park is evil, but that he's trapped. That the prosecution manufactured his testimony through coercion. Naomi made notes furiously. What about the other witnesses? For hours, Tae-hyun walked her through each witness, each piece of evidence, filling in context the prosecution had deliberately omitted. The weapons charge stemmed from a gun found in a car Tae-hyun had sold months earlier. The money laundering involved a complex international banking system that was standard practice for Korean-American businesses. The alleged murders were all unsolved cases where the victims had marginal connections to Tae-hyun's legitimate businesses. They built an entire criminal empire out of coincidences and speculation, Naomi said, horrified by the picture emerging. How did Goldstein let this get so far? Goldstein was arrogant. He believed his reputation would be enough. Tae-hyun rubbed his eyes wearily. And perhaps he was right to abandon me. Perhaps I am guilty of everything they claim. Are you? Naomi asked bluntly. He met her eyes. I run businesses in Koreatown. Some legal, some less so. I protect Korean families when the police won't. I settle disputes that the legal system ignores. Do I operate outside the law sometimes? Yes. Have I ordered violence? When necessary to protect my people, yes. His voice was steady, unflinching. But I'm not the monster they're painting. I'm not a murderer or a drug trafficker or any of the things they claim. I'm just a man trying to protect his community the only way I know how. Then that's what the jury needs to hear. Not a denial, but context. The truth, complicated and messy and human. Naomi checked her watch. 3 in the morning. We need to rest, a few hours at least. You should go home. Get real sleep in your own bed. I live in Echo Park. It's 40 minutes each way. I'll just crash on the couch here. She gathered some files to use as a makeshift pillow. Wake me at 6. We'll do a full run-through before court. Naomi, Taehyun's voice stopped her. Thank you for believing I deserve a defense, for risking yourself for a stranger. We're not strangers anymore, she said softly. We're attorney and client, and I don't lose if I can help it. She curled up on the leather couch, exhaustion finally winning over adrenaline. Just before sleep claimed her, she felt something warm being draped over her. Taehyun's suit jacket, smelling of cedar and rain. And distantly, she heard him murmur in Korean words she didn't understand, but somehow felt in her bones. Naomi woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee and something delicious. She sat up, disoriented, to find Taehyun setting up breakfast on the conference table. Proper Korean breakfast, not just bagels and coffee. You cooked? She asked, voice rough with sleep. I had it delivered from my restaurant. You need fuel for today. He gestured to the spread. Rice, soup, banchan, grilled fish. Eat, then we prepare. They ate quickly, then spent 2 hours rehearsing Naomi's closing argument. She paced the office, delivering her speech to Taehyun, refining phrases, cutting what didn't work, building toward emotional beats that would resonate with jurors. You're a natural, Taehyun observed. You should have been a lawyer years ago. Life had other plans. Naomi checked her reflection in a window. She'd slept in her clothes, her hair was a mess, and she looked exactly like what she was, a waitress pretending to be an attorney. I need to change. I can't go into court looking like this. Already handled. Taehyun pulled out a garment bag. I had my assistant purchase professional attire in your size. If you're going to defend me, you should look the part. Inside was a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, cream blouse, and modest heels. Everything fit like it had been made for her. How did you know my size? I pay attention. His eyes held hers. You've been in that courtroom for 3 weeks, Naomi. Did you think I didn't notice? Every day in the same seat, taking notes, studying everything. I asked my people to find out who you were. When you stood up yesterday, it felt like fate. Something in Naomi's chest tightened. You had me investigated? I know you dropped out of UCLA law to pay your mother's medical bills before she died. I know you're supporting your younger sister Keisha through college. I know you work 70 hours a week and still can't make ends meet. I know you're brilliant and underestimated and deserving of so much more than life has given you. His voice softened. So when you stood up to defend me, I understood. You weren't just defending a stranger. You were defending everyone the system has failed, including yourself. Naomi's eyes burned with unexpected tears. That's not fair. You can't know me like that and expect me to stay professional. I don't expect anything, but I want you to know that after today, whatever happens, I'm going to help you. Law school loans paid, license obtained, career launched. You saved me, Naomi. Let me save you back. Let's win the case first, then we can talk about debts. She took the garment bag into the bathroom to change, her heart racing with emotions she couldn't afford to examine. The courtroom was packed when they arrived. Journalists, curious onlookers, members of the Korean community, and what Naomi suspected were Taehyun's people, dressed well and watching everything with careful eyes. Prosecutor Chen looked smug, clearly expecting an easy victory. All rise, the bailiff called, and Judge Morrison entered. She surveyed the scene with her sharp eyes, landing on Naomi in her new suit. A slight nod of approval then. Ms. Rivers, you're up. Closing argument for the defense. Naomi stood, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. This was it. Everything she'd worked toward. Everything she'd sacrificed, culminating in this moment. She approached the jury box, meeting each juror's eyes, letting them see her as a person, not just a lawyer. Good morning. My name is Naomi Rivers, and I'm here to tell you a story. Not the story you've heard from the prosecution, the simple, clean narrative about a gang leader finally facing justice, but the real story, the complicated one, the one that shows what happens when the system decides someone is guilty before the trial even begins. She walked them through Park Min-ho's testimony, highlighting every change, every inconsistency, every moment where his story shifted to match what the prosecution needed. She explained the financial records showing how Korean American businesses operated and why transactions that looked suspicious to outsiders were actually standard practice. The prosecution wants you to believe that coincidence equals proof. That if Mr. Kang knew people who committed crimes, he must have ordered those crimes. That if he runs businesses in neighborhoods where bad things happen, he must be responsible for those bad things. But that's not how the law works. That's not justice. That's convenience. She could feel the jury leaning in, engaged, questioning the certainty they'd had minutes before. Naomi pressed her advantage, attacking the credibility of every prosecution witness, showing their criminal histories, their plea deals, their motivations to lie. The prosecution has the burden of proof. They must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Kang committed these crimes. But reasonable doubt is everywhere in this case. It's in Park Min-ho's 4 different versions of events. It's in the financial records that have gaps their own expert couldn't explain. It's in the testimony of career criminals who've been promised freedom in exchange for destroying Mr. Kang. She turned to face Tae-hyun, letting the jury see him as she saw him. Not a monster, but a man. Is Kang Tae-hyun perfect? No. Has he done things that might trouble us? Probably. But that's not what this trial is about. This trial is about whether the prosecution has proven their specific charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And ladies and gentlemen, they haven't even come close. For 45 minutes, Naomi wove her argument, building a narrative of prosecutorial overreach and reasonable doubt. She was passionate but controlled, emotional but logical, speaking the language of justice while appealing to human empathy. And when she finished, she saw something crucial. Several jurors were nodding. Thank you for your attention and your service. Mr. Kang's freedom is in your hands. I trust you'll give him what everyone deserves. A fair shake and a reasonable evaluation of the actual evidence. Thank you. She sat down, hands shaking from adrenaline. Under the table, Tae-hyun's hand found hers and squeezed once. Gratitude and something more. Chen's rebuttal was aggressive but defensive. She could feel the ground shifting under her case. She repeated her accusations, but they sounded hollow after Naomi's systematic dismantling. When Judge Morrison sent the jury to deliberate, the atmosphere in the courtroom had fundamentally changed. The wait was agony. Naomi and Tae-hyun sat in the conference room, neither speaking much, both lost in their own thoughts. Hours passed. Lunch came and went. Naomi's phone buzzed with texts from her boss at the diner. Where was she? She'd missed her shift. Was she sick? I'm going to lose my job, Naomi said dully. I should have told them. Should have explained. You'll have a better job soon, Tae-hyun said with quiet certainty. No matter what happens today. You can't know that. Yes, I can, because I'm going to make sure of it. He turned to face her. Naomi, why did you really help me? And don't say it's just about justice. She wanted to lie to keep things professional, but they were past that. Because I saw something in you, something that reminded me of myself. You're trapped in a life you didn't necessarily choose, trying to do the best you can with the hand you were dealt. You protect people who can't protect themselves. You carry burdens that no one sees or appreciates, and you're being punished for surviving in a world that was stacked against you from the start. You see all that in me? I see you, really see you. Not the demon the prosecution painted, but not a saint either. Just a man trying to do right by his people. Her voice dropped. And maybe I helped you because I wanted someone to see me the same way, to recognize that I'm more than a waitress, more than a dropout, more than someone who couldn't finish what she started. I do see you, Naomi. You're brilliant, courageous. You walked into a courtroom and defended a man everyone else had written off. You rebuilt my entire defense strategy in 18 hours. You gave me hope when I had none. Tae-hyun moved closer. Whatever happens with the verdict, you changed my life today. Don't say things like that when we don't know how this ends. I know how this ends for us. Whether I'm free or imprisoned, I know that you're the most remarkable person I've met, and I'm going to make sure the world recognizes what I see. The bailiff knocked. Jury's back. 15 minutes. Naomi's stomach dropped. After only 6 hours? That was fast. Too fast. Fast usually meant conviction. Juries who acquit deliberate longer, picking apart the evidence carefully. Quick verdicts usually meant certainty, and in a case like this, Certainty meant guilty. Whatever happens, Taehyun said as they stood, thank you for fighting for me. We're not done fighting yet. The courtroom was electric with tension as everyone filed back in. Naomi tried to read the jurors' faces, but they avoided eye contact. Another bad sign. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. Beside her, Taehyun sat with perfect composure, but she could feel the tension radiating from him. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor. The jury foreman, a middle-aged black man who'd been taking extensive notes throughout the trial, stood with a piece of paper. On the charge of racketeering, how do you find? Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. Naomi's breath caught. Taehyun's hand found hers under the table, gripping tight. On the charge of money laundering? Not guilty. More chaos. The judge's gavel slamming. Chen's face going white with fury. On the charges of conspiracy to commit murder? Not guilty. Charge after charge. Not guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty. 17 charges, 17 acquittals. By the end, Naomi was crying, and Taehyun was standing beside her, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Mr. Kang, you're free to go. Judge Morrison looked at Naomi. Ms. Rivers, that was extraordinary work. You should consider taking the bar exam. California needs more lawyers with your fire. The courtroom emptied in a blur of activity. Reporters shouting questions, Taehyun's people surrounding them protectively, Chen storming out with her team. Naomi let herself be pulled along until they were outside, breathing fresh air, reality slowly sinking in. They won. She'd won. She'd defended a man in a RICO trial with 18 hours preparation and no license, and she'd won. Naomi! Taehyun turned to her, his hands on her shoulders. You saved my life. Everything I have, everything I am, I owe to you. You don't owe me anything. I did what any lawyer should do. You're not any lawyer. You're exceptional. His eyes searched hers. Let me help you finish law school. Take the bar. Build the career you deserve. Taehyun, please, let me do this. Not as payment, but as investment in someone who deserves every opportunity. His voice softened. You gave me my freedom. Let me help give you yours. Before Naomi could respond, one of Taehyun's men approached, speaking rapid Korean. Taehyun's expression darkened. He responded curtly, then turned back to Naomi. Goldstein, my people found out what happened. His jaw tightened. He was paid $2 million by the Jade Dragon Gang, my rivals, to throw the case. They wanted me convicted so they could take over my territory. Jesus Christ. If you hadn't stepped in, I'd be facing life in prison right now, and the Jade Dragons would be destroying everything my family built. Taehyun's hands cupped her face. You didn't just save me, Naomi. You saved my entire community. What are you going to do about Goldstein? The legal system will handle it. I'm done with violence. He smiled slightly. You've inspired me to try a different path. Maybe if I operate more legitimately, work within the law instead of around it, I can build something better. That's a big change. You're a big inspiration. His thumb brushed her cheek. Have dinner with me. Tonight. Please. Let me say thank you properly. Every rational part of Naomi's brain said this was a terrible idea. He was a client, a criminal, a man from a completely different world. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something real, something worth exploring. Okay, dinner. But Taehyun, I need to be clear about something. I helped you because it was right, not because I wanted anything from you. I know. That's what makes you extraordinary. Dinner was at Taehyun's private restaurant in Koreatown, the one he'd had breakfast delivered from. The space was elegant but warm, with traditional Korean art on the walls and the smell of incredible food in the air. They had the entire place to themselves, his people discreetly providing security outside. Tell me about your family, Taehyun said over bibimbap and soju. Your sister Keisha, she's studying at UC Berkeley? Computer science. She's brilliant, much smarter than me. I dropped out of law school so she wouldn't have to. Naomi mixed her rice and vegetables. My mom got cancer when I was in my 3rd year. No insurance, bills piling up, and Keisha was a senior in high school with college applications due. Someone had to make the sacrifice. So you did. I'm the oldest. It's what you do. She shrugged. Mom died anyway 6 months later. But at least Keisha got to go to Berkeley. At least one of us is living the dream. That's why you work 70 hours a week, to keep her there. She's on scholarship, but room and board, books, expenses, it adds up. I send her $1,500 a month. It's tight, but we manage. Naomi looked up. How do you know all this? I told you, I pay attention. Tae-hyun refilled her soju glass. What would you do if money wasn't an issue? If you could have any life you wanted? Finish law school, pass the bar, open a practice that helps people who can't afford traditional legal services. The words came easily, dreams she'd pushed down for so long. Public defenders are overworked and underpaid. A lot of people end up with inadequate representation just because they're poor. I wanted to fix that. You still can. Tae-hyun, law school costs money I don't have. And even if I could afford to go back, I'd need to live on something while I studied full-time. It's not realistic. What if I paid for everything? Tuition, living expenses, books, everything you need to finish your degree and take the bar. That's too much. I can't accept that kind of money from you. Why not? I spend more than that on a car I barely drive. You saved my life, Naomi. You gave me back my future. Why can't I do the same for you? Because then I'd be obligated to you, because it would change things between us. She met his eyes. And I don't want money to complicate whatever this is. What is this? His hand covered hers on the table. I don't know yet, but it feels important. It feels like something I don't want to mess up by mixing it with money and debt and obligation. Tae-hyun was quiet for a moment, then withdrew his hand. You're right. I apologize. I'm used to solving problems with resources, but you're not a problem, and this isn't something money can fix. Thank you for understanding. But Naomi, I meant what I said in court. Win or lose, I was going to help you, not because of debt, but because the world needs lawyers like you. So let me propose something different. He leaned forward. Come work for me as my personal attorney. I'll pay you a salary that lets you support Keisha and yourself while you finish school part-time. When you pass the bar, you'll already have experience, references, and connections. You want to hire me as your lawyer after I just barely won your case? You didn't barely win. You demolished the prosecution with 18 hours preparation. Imagine what you could do with actual time and resources. His eyes were intent. I need good legal counsel, Naomi. Real counsel, not someone who'll sell me out. And you need a way to finish your education without drowning in debt. This solves both problems. What would I actually be doing? I'm not helping you break laws. I don't want you to. I'm serious about going legitimate. I have dozens of businesses that need legal oversight. Real estate, restaurants, import-export operations. All legal, all needing someone to handle contracts, negotiations, compliance. He smiled slightly. And yes, probably defending me again eventually. People like me, we attract legal trouble even when we're trying to stay clean. Naomi's mind raced. It was a lifeline, a way out of the trap she'd been living in. But it also meant tying herself to a man she barely knew, a man from a dangerous world. Can I think about it? Of course, but Naomi, whatever you decide about working for me, I want to keep seeing you, like this, as, what, friends? More than friends? I'm not sure what to call it, but I don't want tonight to be the last time we have dinner together. Heat flooded Naomi's cheeks. You want to date me? Yes, very much. Tae-hyun, you barely know me. I know you're brave enough to charge into a courtroom to defend a stranger. I know you sacrifice your own dreams for your sister. I know you're brilliant and principled and absolutely terrifying when you're making a closing argument. His hand reached across the table again. I know that in 18 hours, you gave me hope I hadn't felt in months, and I want to know everything else. This is crazy. Your world is dangerous. You're probably going to end up in court again. I could get hurt, dragged into something. I'll protect you. With everything I have, I'll keep you safe. You can't promise that. No, but I can try. And Naomi, you could get hit by a car tomorrow. Life is dangerous no matter what you do. At least with me, you'd be living instead of just surviving. She wanted to argue, wanted to be rational. But sitting across from this man who saw her as someone remarkable, someone worth fighting for, Naomi felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was time to stop playing it safe. Maybe it was time to take a chance on something that felt real. Okay, she heard herself say, I'll work for you, and we can see what happens between us, but slowly, with clear boundaries. And if you lie to me even once, I walk. Deal? Taehyun's smile transformed his face. Deal. When can you start? I need to give the diner 2 weeks' notice, and I need to figure out how to re-enroll at UCLA Law, and I'll handle UCLA. I know people on the board. They'll be thrilled to have you back, especially after today's victory makes the news. He pulled out his phone. I'll have my assistant set up everything tomorrow. You'll start law school next semester while working for me part-time. Fair? You move fast. I've learned not to waste time on things that matter. His eyes held hers. And Naomi, you matter. More than you know. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Naomi gave her notice at the diner, much to her boss's disappointment and her coworkers' shock. You're really going to work for that mobster? Lisa, the head waitress, asked with poorly concealed envy. He's a businessman, and I'm his legal counsel, Naomi replied calmly, refusing to engage with the judgment. She re-enrolled at UCLA Law with a full scholarship, anonymously funded, though she suspected Taehyun was behind it despite his denials. Her professors were shocked to see her back, even more shocked when they heard about the Kang case. You defended a RICO case with no license and won? Professor Chen, her old criminal law teacher, said, with something like awe. Naomi, you're a legend. Half my students are studying your closing argument. Working for Taehyun was nothing like she expected. His legitimate businesses were vast and complex. 3 restaurants, a chain of convenience stores, commercial real estate holdings, an import-export company, all needing contracts reviewed, negotiations handled, legal compliance maintained. Naomi threw herself into the work, discovering that she loved corporate law as much as criminal defense. She negotiated lease agreements, reviewed business partnerships, handled employment disputes. And slowly she began to understand Taehyun's world, the pressure he was under, the responsibilities he carried, the careful balance he maintained between his past and his future. They took things slow, just as she'd demanded. Dinners once a week, occasional lunches when their schedules aligned. He never pressured her, never pushed for more than she was ready to give. But the connection between them deepened with every conversation, every shared moment. Tell me about your family, Naomi said one evening over bulgogi at his restaurant. They'd fallen into a routine. Wednesday dinners, always the same place, always just the two of them. My father was hard, Taehyun said carefully. He built everything from nothing, which made him appreciate nothing. He wanted me to be strong, so he was cruel. He wanted me to be respected, so he taught me to be feared. His expression darkened. I've spent the last 5 years trying to be a different kind of leader, trying to prove you can protect people without terrorizing them. Is that working? Better since you came into my life. Having someone push me toward legitimacy helps. Having someone see me as more than my father's legacy helps. He reached across the table. You make me want to be better, Naomi. You're already better than you think. But not everyone thought so. 2 months into Naomi's new life, reality came crashing back. She was leaving the law library late one night, arms full of books, mind on tomorrow's contracts exam, when a black SUV pulled up beside her. The door opened, and before Naomi could scream, hands grabbed her, pulling her inside. Drive, someone said in Korean accented English, and the SUV lurched forward. Terror flooded through Naomi. There were 3 men in the vehicle, all Korean, all watching her with expressions ranging from hostile to curious. Who are you? What do you want? We're the Jade Dragons, the one in the passenger seat said. He was older, scarred, with dead eyes. You cost us a lot of money when you saved Kang Dae-hyun. We paid good money to ensure his conviction. And you ruined everything. So what? You're going to kill me for doing my job? We're going to use you to send a message. Kang thinks he can go legitimate, can leave the old ways behind. We're going to show him what happens when you get soft. Deadeyes pulled out a knife. This is going to hurt. Naomi didn't think. She threw her heavy legal textbook at his face, then lunged for the door handle. They were moving fast, but death by traffic seemed better than whatever they had planned. She got the door open, felt wind and terror, and then hands yanked her back. Stupid bitch! The SUV's windshield exploded. Gunfire from outside, precise and deadly. The driver slumped forward and the vehicle swerved wildly. More shots, and the man holding Naomi went down. She scrambled toward the open door and threw herself out, hitting pavement hard, rolling, pain exploding through her body. Hands, gentle hands, pulled her up. Miss Rivers, You're safe. I've got you. It was one of Tae-hyun's security team, a man she'd seen at the restaurant but never spoken to. Around them, more of Tae-hyun's people were securing the SUV, the Jade Dragons, either dead or surrendering. How did you... Boss has had extra security on you for weeks. We've been tracking Jade Dragon movements. When they grabbed you, we followed. The man's expression was grim. Boss is going to lose his mind when he finds out we let them get this close. Because you make me better, and I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Yes, she kissed him through happy tears. Yes, you impossible, reformed criminal. Yes. They married 6 months later in a ceremony that blended Korean and American traditions. Keisha was there, graduated and working at Google, grateful to the sister who'd sacrificed everything. Tae-hyun's business associates filled half the room, Naomi's law school friends the other half. And in the front row sat Judge Morrison, who'd taken a chance on a waitress with no license. You two are proof that sometimes justice means believing in people everyone else has written off, she told them at the reception. Naomi opened Rivers Legal Services the following month. Her first client was a Korean immigrant facing deportation. Her second was a black teenager charged with a crime he didn't commit. One by one, she took on cases everyone else rejected, building a reputation as a lawyer who fought for the forgotten. And Tae-hyun kept his promise. His businesses went fully legitimate, no more gray areas, no more questionable operations. He became a pillar of Koreatown, funding community programs, supporting immigrant families, building bridges between communities.